Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Today's conversation is going to shift the way you think about stress, burnout, and power. I'm joined by Dr. Sharon Melnick, a Harvard trained psychologist and best-selling author. She makes a bold claim that burnout doesn't come from having too much to do, it comes from having too little power. No, not title power, but personal power, the kind that gives you agency, confidence, and influence. In this episode, we dive into how leaders lose their power, how to get it back, and how to create a team culture that's burnout proof. Now, if you've ever felt stuck, drained, or like you're spinning your wheels, this episode is for you. Now, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started. Today, we're joined by Dr. Sharon Melnick. Sharon is an executive psychologist and coach with 25 years of experience. She is a global authority on personal power and high performance in leadership. Her methods are informed by 10 years of psychology research at Harvard Medical School and field tested by coaching and training participants at Fortune 500 and fast-growing portfolio companies. She is the best-selling author of the new book, In Your Power, React Less, Regain Control, and Raise Others. Her prior book is called Success Under Stress, and I am excited to have her on the show to learn from her deep expertise. So Sharon, welcome to the show.
Delighted to be here.
Well, it's an honor to meet you. And, this is a subject that I'm kind of interested to talk about. One is, the idea of burnout and stress, and the other is the idea of power. So I think the two are related, and you're the expert. So I'm glad to have you here. But let's start off by talking about stress and burnout, because I think we're under a lot of stress these days. I think the world seems to be moving faster and faster. Why do leaders often burn out, and what are some of the causes?
Okay, well, I'm going to focus in more on burnout for the purpose of answering this question, and you'll understand why. So, how about if we start off talking about what doesn't cause burnout? Okay, so we often think that burnout comes from having too much to do, right? And I'm sure every one of you listeners has like too much to do. You're up to here. We also think that it comes from, just too much work. I'll tell you that McKinsey did a study of burnout around the world, and workload was not even in the top 5 of the predictors of burnout. Burnout doesn't come from having too much to do. It comes from having too little power. Okay. So you're digesting that. Now, what do I mean by power? Okay. So, we're all leaders here. So you might immediately go to how much power you have. But I'm not talking about how much power you have. I'm really talking about being in your power, your personal sense of power, what I call in your power. Right? And it actually comes from the Latin root posse, which means to be able. So if I had to kind of put a heady definition on it, what does it mean to be in your power? It means you are able, you have a sense of agency. So think of a situation that's really challenging for you, kind of wearing you down, stressing you out. Do you have a sense of agency? Like you feel like, oh yeah, I have options. There's things that I could do about this situation to make it better. Second, a sense of sovereignty. Now, what do I mean by sovereignty? It's like you can feel in your body and mind how you intend to feel. So mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like you have the experience inside of you as you intend. And look, we all react. So you might get out of that state, kind of temporarily, but you have the ability to get back into your center, right? To feel confident and to not be ruled by what other people think about you. That's that sense of sovereignty. Like you can come back to calm and your center. And then the third ability, what it means to be in your power, is you have a sense of efficacy. That means that when you act, you make change. Like there's an impact, there's you influence, and people do what you say. You can make people change, you can make the situation better, right? So a sense of agency, a sense of sovereignty, and a sense of efficacy. And you know what's really interesting is in that McKinsey study that I was talking about, what do you think they found was the number one predictor of well-being in the workplace?
I don't know. You tell us.
Right. I mean, a lot of things might come to mind, but self-efficacy, the
Hmm.
number one predictor of well-being in the workplace, which is kind of synonymous, right, of being in your power. It means like you feel like you have a sense of control, like you feel like you can have an impact on the things around you, and that is the thing that is wearing people down. And when you're not in your power, it kind of feels like you're putting out effort, but you're not getting traction.
Hmm.
Like you've said something to the person over and over again, but like they're not changing, or you've asked for what you need, and you're just not getting it right. It's like over and over, and it's you can almost picture it like a tire in snow. You know what I mean? Like sort of going round and round. That's what grinds our gears. That's what puts us on the fast path to burnout.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense. I know, for example, one of the things that we talked about when I was in the military was this idea of responsibility and authority. And so we used to say that you could delegate authority, but you could never delegate responsibility. As the leader, right? We would give authority to others, right? But we would hold responsibility for ourselves. But what I found in my days, I did 22 years in corporate, and what I found is we
Mhm.
did just the opposite. We would delegate responsibility, but the leaders would hold back on the authority. So you were responsible for things that you were somewhat out of your control. And so what I saw was a lot of people stressed out because they were being held responsible and yet they weren't given the authority. To your point, that they didn't feel like they were in control of the things that they needed to do to get their job done. And thus there was a lot of stress. So is that what a little bit of what you're talking about? The idea that you have responsibilities that you don't necessarily have the authority to do it, but you say you have to find that within yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, so bingo, you totally got that,
Yeah.
the core of that idea where you don't have that sense of self-efficacy, right? And so then you have to find a way of being in your power so that you can approach the situation differently. Because usually what happens in that situation is like when we're not in our power, the way that we try to make the situation better often like makes it worse, right? Like because we
Mm.
keep like going back and asking the same way, or then we avoid asking because we're like, oh, we're just going to get the same answer anyway. And we're not really effective. But really the moment that you get back into your power, you will see the situation from a different vantage point. You will have a fresh perspective, and you will see solutions, like they will become accessible to you that you didn't even see before. And that's why it's so relevant, right? To kind of, we're starting to reverse that burnout situation that people are in.
So what are some of the signs that a leader might be getting, facing burnout, or and then so when does and how do they shift? How do they make that shift? So are there signs? Are there, is it stress? Is it not sleeping? What are the kind of the signs of burnout? And then how do they sort of take that first and few steps to sort of, and again, sort of realize that self-efficacy like you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're already in burnout, or if you're kind of on the way, you'll definitely notice that you're starting to feel exhausted in a way that isn't helped even by like getting a good night's sleep or taking the weekend off. It's just sort of a profound feeling like you feel drained is more what it is. You start to feel like you're not yourself anymore.
Mm.
Like, you're kind of a shell of yourself. Like, you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You show up as a distracted, even a diminished version of yourself because you just don't feel that sense of like, that you can control the situation. So you start to pull back. I mean, for sure, you might see signs of what we typically think of as signs of stress, like you're not sleeping well through the night, or you're very kind of, activated. But actually, it's a really good question that you ask because it's kind of the difference between stress and burnout. So most of us are stressed out, right? Like we are all in the kind of too much to do. And where that comes from is that, we have two parts to our nervous system. We have kind of like an on mode, our sympathetic nervous system, which gives us energy and focus to solve problems and run from meeting to meeting and get the presentation done and then run to pick up our kids. And then we have an off mode, which gives us calm and rejuvenation, and we can turn our head off and, sleep at night. And the way that we're built as humans is we're supposed to have balance. We're supposed to oscillate between, being in our on mode and then turning off our head, sleeping or resting or meditating or doing any of the thing, walking in nature, so that we're sort of on and then we're off. We do a sprint and we do a recovery period like throughout our days. That's the way that we're built as humans. So, but we're not that way. We're always on. So in that way, a lot of the signs that we call I'm stressed out, like
Mm.
not sleeping or just feeling like my mind is racing and I can't, turn it off, or I'm just getting sick, I just feel like I'm pushing or I'm on fumes. Like those kinds of things are signs of stress. But
Mm.
what I'm trying to say here is burnout is actually a different phenomenon. And it actually gets activated in a different part of the brain. And if you want to ask me, I can go into that if that's of interest to anyone. But so that's why when we try to prevent or reverse burnout, it's really about this sense of not being in your power. Right.
Mm.
And that's when it's more like like I was saying, like you just feel like you've tried and you're not getting traction. And it's almost like, why bother
Mm.
anymore? Like that's more of the feeling of it. And then you start to have ideas like, maybe I should take a sabbatical, or, can I even really stay here? Will my, talents be recognized and valued? Like you start to have that kind of questioning, which is like a different line of questioning than like, I just need to like catch my breath. I'm overwhelmed. My head's like too full. So that's really what's happening with burnout. And there's many things that you could do to reverse it, but let's just go with an instant one. How about
Mm.
that?
Yeah.
So I'll give you two examples of this. So one is I was giving a presentation, and a woman who was a kind of, you know, senior to mid leader in a big pharma company, she came up to me afterwards and she said, I'm in this situation and I'm trying to get promoted, but in order to get promoted, like everyone tells me like you're ready, like you're crushing it, and but I have to move to like a different city, in order to do that. And I can't do that right now because I just got married and I'm tied to kind of where my husband is, and we're in the countryside and we really wanted to like have this, more kind of cool, quiet life. And we wanted to get pregnant and all that. So she's like telling me this, and she's like, I've asked all these different people and I keep getting a no, or I keep getting a non-response. And she, you could just see, she's like, and this has been going on. And as she's talking about it, you could just see she gets to the point where it's kind of like she kind of just peters out, like there's like no more answers, like that's a good telltale sign. Not that most people get there, but it was like I could
Yeah.
see it, like she's definitely entering burnout. And so what I talked with her about is she was so resistant. She just wanted that promotion. She wanted to like get what she wanted, and I just asked her this question: how might this situation be happening for you, not to you?
Mm.
And she was, she spun her head around and well, we really, I've always wanted to be a mother. And, we just moved into this farmhouse in the country. I just got married. And, really, if I could get pregnant and we could have a baby for a year or two, it really would be kind of perfect. I mean, I know how to do my job really
Mm.
well, it'd be kind of the perfect timing, but she couldn't like get off of the like advancement track and the like people
Mm.
telling her to, you know what I mean? Just ask again. And, it was like she was so caught up in it that she couldn't like, it was like defeat, to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
sort of not think about it that way. And when I asked her that question, you could see it's like her whole demeanor just like shifted and she got like more relaxed. And she was like, she could have everything she wanted if she just kind of did it in a sequence, over
Yeah.
time. So, like, you could see it's just like she immediately reconnected to her sense of power. Like, she could choose this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's almost like it's like like a shift of perspective, in other words, just to sort of, knock yourself out. You're like you're stuck in a lane and everything sort of is happening, like you said, to you. And you sort of like when you say is happening for me, it's sort of like a shift in perspective, right? It's just sort of like seeing it from a different point of view, right? And so what you're able to do is help her kind of, get away from just what, her focus in just this one area, but to see it from a different perspective. Is that part of our ways that we can get better or be able to deal with that, is to sort of look at it from a different perspective?
Yeah, it's absolutely that. And you notice that she had more of a sense of control.
Mm,
And I'm going to give you another example that's going to show you how immediate this sense of like the moment you get back into your power, you see solutions that weren't available to you. So I was at a senior executive dinner and I met a guy who was an executive in a European company and head of a global team. And he says, I'm in this situation right now where our CEO just decided to kind of take the activities of my global team and kind of reassign them to the heads, the in-country heads, right,
mm,
of each of the countries, essentially kind of taking away his mandate. And he said, and now I'm the person who's responsible for like rolling out, this new structure. And it was terrible for him. He was like, this is totally a no-win situation for me. I have to like lead everyone on this like solution, which like I totally don't believe in, which is bad for me and my team and my career, and he said, I just don't see like, it's just a no-win situation for him. And then, you could see as he talked about it, he said, I just I just don't feel the same sense of energy in the last few
mm,
weeks since this was decided. And he said, and that's everywhere in my life. Boom, you hear the burnout right there. And he said, I'm thinking maybe I'll take a sabbatical. Maybe I just have to leave. This is a guy 20 years climbing the ladder of, you know what I mean? A strong sense of self-efficacy. He doesn't even feel like he has any control,
mm,
in this situation. He said, my CEO, he didn't even consult me. He didn't share any of the data. He just made this decision without me. There's that sense of powerlessness, right? And so, again, it's certainly not the only intervention. We could talk about lots of things that you could do, but with his permission, I asked him this magic question right there in the dinner, at the end, and I said, uh, how might this situation be happening for you, not to
mm,
you? And
mm.
after he was all dejected and he was like, and I've been talking about this with my coach and, and he doesn't have any solutions and he's all like thinking he's going to have to leave. And, and he's dejected and drained. And he said, he like, his eyes like came to life, his face like livened up and you could see his whole, like he sat up, in his chair and he said, well, you know, actually, I've been wanting to like pilot these certain programs, and so the in-country heads could pilot them, and then if it works, then we could scale it as the global team. And actually there's a lot of like day-to-day things that we don't really need to be doing as a global team, that if they took care of them, we'd be freed up to be more strategic. And he was like, like he started like have
Yeah,
all these
yeah.
ideas, you know what I mean? And there he is, he's still there, 6 months later, since I met him, and he's thriving in his role. But it's like you could see the moment he got back in his power, none of those solutions did he see because when you're not in your power, you're looking at the aspects of the situation that you wish weren't true, that are out of your control. You're
Mm.
making it mean something about you and what it means for the rest of your career. And there you are, tires in the tracks, right? And then he just like got back to himself. Boom.
That's really cool. And one of the things that I hear when you're talking through it is like the power of questions, the power of perspective. And one of the things we talk about on this show is the idea that leaders should have a mentor or coach, someone they can talk to. And I know for me, as a CEO, I have a CEO coach. And what I love about having a coach is that he'll ask me questions that are like, and he'll challenge me to change my perspective or think about it differently. And when I do, I always leave those calls like so much better, because sometimes like when you're talking about your spinning your wheels, I feel like sometimes we kind of get stuck in our own ways and we have a hard time seeing the way forward, right? And so sometimes a powerful question from someone that that you trust, or that you have this trust and relationship with, can help kind of get you back on track again, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think that people start to change their sense of identity. Like when you're in a state of burnout, you make it mean something like there's something wrong with you, when really,
Mm,
no, you're just out of your power. Let's get you back in your power. And
yeah.
it's not the only thing that you could do. Obviously, was just one example of a question, but you could see how anything that you do to get you back into your power is going to immediately put you on a different course. And
Yeah.
then you can be that person for your team, because you want to be a leader who helps to burnout proof your team members. Because burnout, what I think the recent Deloitte study puts it 77% of people
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
workplace experiencing burnout. I mean, this is a serious, issue.
So take that to the next level. So how do we as leaders keep an eye out for our team and keep an eye out for burnout and help our employees who might be struggling to see things differently?
Yeah, it's such an important question. And, I want you all to take away like you have more power than you think, right?
Yes.
And so if we extend this idea that being in your own power is going to help to burnout proof your own life and leadership, then what a leader could do, so a leader creates the weather on the team,
Mm,
right? So a leader can help to create conditions for their people to be in their power,
mm,
right? So I would suggest you like add a KPI or whatever your objectives are. You know what I mean? Is to always be thinking like, am I creating conditions for my people to be in their power? So when I make a decision, just to riff, on a couple
mm,
of things here, when I make a decision, am I giving them context? Am I helping them to understand how
mm,
this came about? So like that guy, Lucas, you know what I mean? Is that he didn't feel included. He felt kind of done to, in that
yeah.
situation. But am I, bringing them along in my thinking? As a leader, you got to know your people are talking about you over their dinner table. What are they saying? Like,
Yeah.
are they saying, that you are someone who helps them to feel a sense of control? Are you talking with them about their development? Are you transparent? Do they know kind of where they stand and where they're going, with you? I mean, there's just a million ways, and really, I gotta say it. I can't hold myself back here. But one of the ways that's really important to help your people be in control is for you to be in your own power and for
Mm,
you to be confident in you. Because when you're not confident in you, there's two ways for you to kind of get to a place of confidence in you. One is playing your small game, and the other is playing your big game. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, your small game is based on you act out of your momentary personalized concerns. What are people going to think about me,
mm,
right? And therefore you act according to that. So you're going to, tell your leadership or board what they want to hear because you want them to think well of you. You know, or you're not going to make the tough call because you don't want to have to like deal with the people and the consequences of it, or you're going to take credit from one of your team members, as you did it yourself because you want to look good to your senior manager. I mean, it could be many, many things, but any way that you sort of involve other people in order to get that confidence within yourself. And when you play small, your small game, you force your team to play small as well.
mm,
Because what you're doing is you're putting them in a position to have to help you manage your own confidence, right? So then they have to be like monitoring and helping you to like deal with you instead of like putting their attention on like moving mountains for you, and in the service of your vision. So one thing that you can do to be in your power and help your team be in their power is play your big game. Your big game is really like, you know, what are you what's your legacy? Like what's the best possible outcome for everyone in this situation? Like how could we elevate the brand of our team within the overall organization? Or how can I describe my vision in a way that is motivating and inspiring to everyone and really brings out, their better angels? So how can I give myself myself that confidence, and so that I could give it to them rather than trying to get my confidence from them. Again, that sort of right kind of tries to control them. So that's what your big game is. It's like, what's the best possible outcome? Okay, we have some friction going on the team here, but how do I see it so it's like, everyone is at their best, we
We have lost your internet, Sharon. I'm 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 having a hard time. I missed about last 2 minutes. Are you there? Uh, yes. I see you, but I don't hear you anymore. Uh, shoot. I don't know why I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Is it
Oh,
different
I
now?
hear you now. Yeah, I
Okay, I
hear you
just I
now.
just like unplugged it and plugged it. I have no idea what happened there.
Yeah, I lost you. Yeah, I lost about a 2 minutes of your final
Oh,
thing you were talking about. So,
okay. Do you know where you lost me? Should I do it again? Was it good content, or you didn't hear it? So okay, wait.
yeah.
Tell me where you lost me, and I'll say it again.
Yeah. So you were getting into shoot. I was so I was so focused on trying to get you back.
I'm so sorry. That's so weird
Yeah,
because I could see myself like,
yeah.
I
You're
didn't
you're
freeze.
you're nice and strong now, but I wasn't getting any volume. So, uh, let's see. I'm trying to think of the best way I can
I could answer the whole question again. I could answer it more concisely.
um yeah, let's think of the question I asked you because I'm a little off track right now.
Yeah, it was
So,
something about how a leader can help burnout proof their
right.
team.
Right. Okay. So you were getting into that. So, oh, I know. You were talking about how that you talk about the short game, the long game, and we were talking about the long game and why the long game is so important. So let's kind of let's continue that thread, and then we can kind of keep going. Does that sound good? And I'll just clip it.
All
Okay.
good.
Okay. Great.
Um,
Tell me a little bit more about this long game.
yeah. So, you know, when a leader doesn't feel confident, when we have doubts, which is, all of us, right? I mean, we're totally in unprecedented, uncharted times right now. And so all of us can have moments when we falter like that. But there's two ways of kind of getting back to that place of confidence, right? So you can either get there via your small game or via your big game. Now, your small game is about your momentary and personalized concerns, which usually is about like, what are people going to think about me? So we all are tempted to do things like, say what other people want to hear rather than the truth because it makes us look good, or maybe micromanage someone on our team, or take the credit because, we want it to reflect well on us. So that's what I'm saying is a small game because it's really about involving other people in order to get that feeling of confidence in your own self. And when you play small, it forces your team members to play small because you're putting them in a position of having to like manage you or like help you to feel confident in yourself. Like that is a really small goal for your team.
Mm.
You want to play your big game so that your team can play their big game, which is really like, what are the results that you're here to contribute to the overall organization or to your customers, your patients, your clients, et cetera. So what does your big game look like? It's, what is your legacy? It's like, what's the best possible outcome in this situation? communication. So even if there's like friction amongst the team members, or there's some problem with a supply chain or a number on a spreadsheet or something like that, it's like, let's move beyond the current moment and let's think about like, what is the best possible outcome where everyone is, kind of at their best, and the whole thing has kind of worked out. Because that's really where your power comes from, is from unlocking the energies of other people. That's where your power comes from. It doesn't really come too much, from your positional authority there. So when so you want to play your big game in that way, and then your team members are free to like do their best and put all their energies into like this result, and having the best relationships with each other, and they don't have to be helping you to feel confident in yourself. That's their small game. So
You know, I,
these are, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I like, it's the idea that, our mood and our behaviors as leaders is contagious, right? So if we're constantly playing that small game, as you call it, our employees do the same thing. And if we focus on the big picture and the goals and things that we're trying to do from a big picture, then they're going to do that as well. And I think that so if you find yourself, it sounds like if you find yourself as a leader being burnt out, kind of like being emotional, reacting emotionally to things, and your team is about, you're going to do that too. So it's almost like you've got to make sure that when you step into that leadership role every day, that you're thinking about the impact you're making on others, but based on your behaviors and your actions, right?
That's totally right. And you want like a really, really just quick, instant way of being able to tell, like, if you're in your power and you're helping other people to be in their power.
What's
Uh,
that?
yeah. So you can ask yourself this question. You're either being one or the other, and which is it? So are you being the thermometer? When you're the thermometer, it's like, you're reacting to other people. It's like other people act and you react, and when you're the thermometer, it's like the climate is created outside of you and you're just registering it or reacting to it, like literally a thermometer, and you could feel more like the casualty than the creator of your experience. So are you being the thermometer? Is your mental and emotional state going up and down? Or are you being the thermostat?
Mm.
When you're the thermostat, you set the tone. It's like, who you are. That's that sovereignty, and you have a vision of how this could be better for everyone. Problem solved. Everyone's like, at their highest and best use. And so it's like you show up as who you need to be in order to bring everyone along to that vision. And again, you create that weather. So you want to know if you're in your power and you're creating conditions for other people to be in your power. Are you being the thermometer, or are you being the thermostat?
Wow, that's so powerful. That's such a great analogy, a great way to remember that. So, this has been a fantastic conversation, Sharon. I think you've given us a lot of things to think about. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
I'm here to redefine the idea of power, John. And, you have more power than you think. And when you're in your power as a leader, you raise everyone around you.
Fantastic. I love that. So, leaders, are you in your power? That's a great question. And Sharon's given us a lot to think about. Sharon, how can people find out more about you, your books, and the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So, one great place to start is if you want to find out if you are burnout proofing your own life and leadership, as well as, for your team. I have a checklist,
Hmm.
which is really great for you to like put up around your computer or your desk area, and you just look up at that thing and I ask you some questions. You're like, oh yeah, I'm helping my team be in my power. Or, uh-oh, what I mean? Those are really good reminders. So you can find that at my website, sharonmelnick.com, SharonMelnick, sharonmelnick.com/burnout. Excuse me. Yeah, but that's right, burnout. So sharonmelnick.com/burnout. And then also, get the book In Your Power. It's a workshop in a book, and it will really help you again for your own self and for your team members. And it's a great gift for someone who you want to encourage to be in their power. It's a good way of giving that message to them. Here's a way for you to be in your power. So sharonmelnick.com/burnout or the book In Your Power, and feel free to link in with me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. We're going to put links in the show notes for all of Sharon's resources. And again, the book is called In Your Power. And it's like she mentioned, it's great for you as a leader. It's great for someone maybe that you work with or maybe someone that you feel like is suffering from potential burnout, is trying to figure out how they can get back into their power. And Sharon, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've given us a lot to think about, and this idea of power, this idea of burnout, and how they're related. And it's been very helpful. And I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this information to our listeners.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.